The girl closed the door behind you both, double-checking that the door was indeed shut tight. The safety of her sisters was paramount to her. She glanced out with apprehension. You followed her close behind down the corridor, her hand never leaving yours. Pursuing this child down the hallway, both of you ascended the central staircase. A brass chandelier dripping with pale wax just skimmed your head as you climbed up. The stairs circled around, and you went not to the next floor, but the third and final one. A lone and solemn door received you both. Entwined into the knots of its wood, wisps of rotting ivy plucked through. An ancient door that should have been buried long ago. A gentle tap on your arm caused you to turn and see, presented in the little girl's hand, a black key. This should open the door. Listening to her instruction, the key slotted inside the keyhole, and with a turn of the handle it opened the door. Taking quiet, slow steps, you entered. The door! It slammed right behind you. The girl hadn't even had chance to come inside. The floor was covered with a haze of white smoke. It was pitch black. A faint rustling echoed further in the room. The shifting, scraping, and knocking of wood. Stopping dead in your tracks when something flickered through the walls. Hold your breath. Don't blink. A panel in the bottom of the wall slowly slid away. A flame gleamed, chained to a thin candle, and attached to the candle, the girl of scarlet crawled through. My apologies. I hate it when that happens. You released a fear-filled breath and unclenched your fists, organs burning with adrenaline as her candlelight exposed the scenery of the room you both stood inside. Nonsensical was a word to welcome, a semblance of sense to what you were perceiving. It was a shrine. Strings of chains hung in their hundreds from the ceiling, enchanted in a soft chorus as they swayed around your presence. Every surface had been embedded with dark gems and tarnished metals. A vanity collected dust and decay, and in the corner was a four-poster bed, its curtains worn away to almost nothing. This bedroom was filled with strange ornaments, glittering crystals, and cryptic tapestries. You asked the little girl if this was her bedroom. No, but it is home to another one like us, dormant before me and created after me. She brought the candle to the side of the bed and beckoned you to look inside. The only thing not eroded by the sands of time was the bed itself, and there, laid on its back, was a knight in silver armour. A humanoid body, though no humanity lurked inside, forged in a substance to ignite war itself, shackled to oblivion. Was he dead? It could have been just a skeleton inside silver armour. Or was he alive? He breathed slowly, as if asleep, his chest rising and falling, but it was barely there. Perhaps this place would swallow him up again. With that, you swallowed, afraid to move in case it bolted upright and grabbed a hold of you. You asked this child if the night had a name or a title? Not that I was told. The vessel is vacant and has been for some time. It comes and goes. We knew of its presence long before the celestial meadow began to wither out of existence. Every time I see a piece of him, I feel uneasy, even though I should not. The spindling of matter, an ancient creature unlike anything ever known, only one of its kind. Its act to guide a gifted one, broken when the veil split thrice. They were sacrificed before they were born, made for such an honor. Untangling from such alien thoughts, the red child continued. We are waiting for someone to free him. These chains are not his, but the work of something else, a being he used to serve. You asked with the hesitancy to offend, who is he to you? A counterpart, a favour. A cold and vast mist gathered on the horizon, for in this cottage a great warrior sleeps, wrapped in chains of silver and shadow. The girl shifted her weight from one foot to the other, anxious, worried. You didn't think you were supposed to be looming over this chained shell of an ancient all-powerful warrior, but now you were certain of it. So you decided to give the girl your name, hoping it would ease her restlessness. She nodded in acceptance, but didn't say her name. You gently inquired as to why. My name? It does not matter. You tried to joke a little, saying, of course it mattered, but her expression never changed. You asked how old she was. What difference does it make? I am a girl. I've always been a girl. I will always be a little girl. I wasn't supposed to be anything else. We are only children once, and that's why it means so much to me. The girl moved behind you, observing the rest of the room with the light of her candle and an eagle eye. Then you remembered you had a light source too, the amber shard. You shook your head, telling the girl she didn't need to keep holding the candle, as you had this. And reaching for the chain around your neck, you slid down to find the amber encased in its silver cage. At the sight of the piece of amber, the little girl's face contorted in horror. Where did you find this? You were not supposed to have this. You were not supposed to take this. Oh God, no. What on earth had you done? Spluttering out apologies, saying you didn't know, that you shouldn't have taken it. There was no warning, no nothing. You didn't even know what it was. What was this? The scarlet girl seized the pendant, as if not wanting to believe her eyes, but with every passing second her wide eyes sunk into grief. She grabbed your hand and hid the shard with it. She pushed your hand back until your hand curled into your chest, pushing with all her might. Pain spiked with her nails in your skin and her weight on your wrist. But you didn't stop her though, because when you looked again her eyes were helpless and full of emotion. It is not. We will not meet again. But if you can do it, if you can dream it right, I can follow where you go. She went to hide it back in your tunic, but shook her head in anguish. Instead, with one free hand, she tugged and pulled the necklace over your head. Guilt coiled inside your stomach. It was your fault she was so upset, but you had to take the glowing stone, otherwise she would have never made it out of that forest. You would have never gotten here. So, why? The girl examined the shining amber, rolling it in her palm. She looked like a princess. Her cheeks sparkled like smooth rubies, and her eyes dark, as focused as garnets. She squeezed it tight in her hand before putting it on and hiding it as best as she could under the collar of her dress. You were never here. This was not the first time you encountered this world, but the next stage will be, tell no one of this encounter. If you do, the perception of madness will orbit you forever, and all will hunt you down. Just with her final words, the candlelight slowly began to bend, and the girl's eyes grew wet with fear, helpless. There's nothing left. They are here. And she bolted out of the room. The walls wavered in metallic jolts, as though you were under a giant bell that had been hit with a hammer. The reverberation made your teeth sting and bones itch. You ran away too. The ivy splintered out of the other side of the door towards you, reaching out like hands beneath the earth of the gravestones. Pushing your body back, you passed them without touching one, hurrying down the stairs to catch up with the girl of scarlet. When you reached the bottom of the stairs, you spied her sprinting back to the nursery before its door closed, and you lost sight of her again. Wasting no time, you returned to the nursery, wrenching the door open, to find an eerie sight before you. The three girls had their backs to the window, all stood beside each other, hands reaching out, waiting to receive something. Each one had a stern look on their faces, deep breaths escaping their lips every now and then. It was as if their eyes were saying, "This is what we are here for." They knew they would make it far, but none of them really wanted to leave this place behind. Yukimi stood in front of them, looking more disheveled than when you saw her before, her sleeves stained as darker blue, her eyes wild with ambition. Another bare-toothed grin found you in the doorway. "Ah, I'm glad to see you have arrived in time, my dear. You will see what I have done. I have contorted the mushroom into the most purest form it can be, a singularity of its own flesh." Yukimi had turned the mushroom into a white sphere, a singularity of itself, she said. Your vision appeared refracted when you stared at it. Even the walls shimmered like water, as if something reflected there. There were voices speaking to you, calling out names through the roaring fire that crackled in the hearth. "One for each of you. One will be enough." Yukimi placed each sphere into the hands of each child. The girls watched her intently as she slinked behind them to begin the next phase. From the nape of her neck, Yukimi plucked a large chunk of hair out from the roots. She waved it above her head, and the lock of hair extended longer and longer until it arched over not only her, but the length of the room as well. It resembled a ribbon of ink. This ribbon of ink hovered like a halo around the three girls. They were drawn together, ready to be drawn and span out into the ether. Those three girls looked so small, becoming bigger than themselves. They stared through you as they opened their mouths, and an ancient string of transcendence echoed out. In ki ira, mbreach alfalma, nma, tilmalje, inkachi, api, nostare. It was like being caught in a storm, like being swept up by the current and carried out into a distant place that was no longer there at all. The only thing you could feel was the overwhelming sensation that came from every single cell of your body, but there was nothing tangible around you. Is this the bonding of matter? A ritual undone to the language that reverberated inside everything? A revolt of infinite extinction? The girls, frozen in a trance, brought their hands to their lips, let the sphere roll onto their tongue, and held it inside their mouths, staying completely still and making no sound. Now, consume. And they swallowed together, and like a whip, the length of Yukumi's hair snapped around their necks, choking them as they swallowed the mushroom. This wasn't right. The spell had broken. The fear, confusion, and terror in their eyes told you so. You bolted forward to stop the ritual from happening. The floor broke, the walls cracked, and blackness seeped from every exposure. Just running on the spot, no friction to heed you. Yukimi blurred with the darkness. The smile she admitted was contorted. Her fingers twisted with a force. Her nails were elongated and blackened to match her hair and clothing. There was no trace of any kindness left. All the while, the red girl reached out to you, but it was no use. Her tiny fingers can never match the strength of yours, but she tried with all her might to free herself. That laughter, so familiar, it called out to you again. In an unnatural flash of shadow, on the girl of Scarlet's neck, the amber shard jutted out into the air and punctured through the black ribbon, tangling itself around and around, turning it into a stream of burning light. The ribbon released, searing your retinas with a ring of fire. The girls collapsed onto each other, holding one another for dear life. The girls melted into the light, embraced in its warmth and resounding song. Yukimi screeched in fury like she had never known such pain and suffering before. Her hair shriveled into her scalp, her eyes disintegrated into blackness, and her tongue collapsed into ash. The skin on her face was scalded with the sign. The sight was appalling. Petrified in mind and body, you choked on your tears. A fear so intense, your heart could boil away. Every step forward was like the ones on the bridge, corroding you away, your feet treading in liquid mercury. Lungs filled with terror, your skin slashed with the radiation of the void around you. There was nothing left to do but surrender to it. The roof collapsed, and the walls stretched above and below you. The three girls ascended into the absolute darkness, and whatever Yukimi was, leapt into the crumbling corridor. A trail of liquid light hissed after her. The fabric of reality tore at the seams, and the final thought came, how did it all go so wrong? Hey everyone, I hope you like that final bit of stage 2. Yeah. Okay, so just so you know, I'm going to take a month break and then we'll be back with stage 3. And we do have some voice acting from some other participants coming into it. But yeah. I hope you have a lovely month. I hope you have a lovely March. And you just enjoy yourself and enjoy spring coming through. Yeah. Okay, I will talk to you soon. Take care. Bye bye.